right? Shalom. I want to start off this lesson giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakah, Kodash. Double honors to our apostles and our elders and our bishops of Great Millstone only, who will well and teach well, being a fine example of how we should conduct ourselves in the days that we are in, the true leaders of Yasha Allah, and the only one certified to teach the 100% truth of the Bible. Peace and blessings and salutations until we elect. Only unto you I say shalom. This is your fellow servant Damawathi bin Lawyer from the GMS Orlando camp. Okay, praying that this lesson be edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. And as you see the title, From Bad to Worse, my boy. Okay, from bad to worse, my boy. And who, when I say my boy, I'm talking about Esau. Okay, Esau, the banking elites, right? The children of the wicked. Okay, who are you, so-called white people? Not all white people are Edomites, but that's your biblical identification, right? You are biblically Edom. Okay, so as we see the days coming that you are losing your supremacy, you're losing your white privilege, all these things, it's not looking good for you, right? As a matter of fact, it's going from bad to worse. And the more we dig up the history of the Edomites, the more we start to find out how detest these people are. And all these things were discovered in the scriptures first. See, the scriptures talked about the Edomites and the types. See, Job had firsthand experience about the Edomites. And when you look up the characteristics of the Edomites, it goes right back to you so-called white people, your behavior traits. All these things we couldn't understand without the Bible. Now, these things are clear. All right. And the Lord has revealed these things in the time for the people to be, privy, okay, to your behavior. That way we have an indicator of who the wicked is, right? Bear with me. Matter of fact, I'm going to get to the video. This is too good to be true. This is prime real estate. This is what we call this, okay? Prime real estate. Hey, and Lord willing, this is edifying.
In 79 AD, a Roman named Marcus sat on a public toilet in Pompeii, chatting with his neighbor about gladiator fights, while they both used the same sponge to wipe themselves. Hours later, Mount Vesuvius erupted, freezing this moment in time forever. When archaeologists found his remains 2,000 years later, still sitting on that toilet, they discovered something horrifying. His intestines were riddled with parasites that came from that very sponge he was sharing. This is the disgusting reality of how Romans really lived. And trust me, it gets so much worse than a communal poop sponge. We romanticize ancient Rome. We see their marble statues, their grand architecture, their sophisticated philosophy, and we imagine a civilization at the peak of human achievement. But here's what your history teacher didn't tell you. Romans had hygiene habits so revolting, they'd be considered war crimes today. These people conquered the known world while brushing their teeth with human pee and wiping their butts with a sponge that hundreds of strangers used before them. I'm about to take you on a journey through the most stomach-churning aspects of Roman daily life. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Roman dinner parties ended with vomiting, why gladiator sweat was a luxury beauty product, and why being a Roman emperor didn't save you from having worms crawling out of your... Well, you'll see. Fair warning, you might want to put down that snack. Let's start with everyone's favorite topic, going to the bathroom. Today, it's a private affair, in Rome. It was a social event that could literally kill you. Roman public toilets, or latrinae, were architectural marvels and hygienic nightmares rolled into one. Picture a large room with 20 to 80 stone seats arranged in a square, each with a keyhole-shaped opening. No doors, no stalls, no privacy whatsoever. You'd walk in and see dozens of people doing their business while having full conversations. Politics, sports, business deals, all discussed while defecating together. Romans saw this as perfectly normal. They asked me, and I'm going to share the recipe.
They were having shit parties, man. Okay? That's what these Romans was doing. That was their counsel. Okay? Salakia.
To lose 24 pounds, okay? First, you're going to take 7 ounces of ice water and put it... In fact, they had a saying, money doesn't stink. which came from Emperor Vespasian defending his tax on public toilets. But here's where it becomes a horror story. Instead of toilet paper, Romans used a tersorium, a sea sponge on a stick. Sounds almost civilized until you realize this wasn't your sponge. It was the sponge. One sponge for everyone. After use, you'd dip it in a gutter of running water, if you were lucky, or a bucket of water mixed with vinegar or salt water, if you weren't. Then you'd place it back for the next person. Let me paint you a picture. It's a busy day at the Circus Maximus. Thousands of people need to use the facilities. That sponge has been used by hundreds of people. The water is murky. The sponge is falling apart, but it's all you've got. Dr. Philippe Charlier, a forensic archaeologist, analyzed ancient fecal matter from Roman sites. He found that these sponges were basically pandemic delivery systems, spreading roundworms, whipworms, giardia, dysentery, and typhoid. But parasites were the least of your worries. Roman toilets were built over sewer systems where methane gas accumulated. Sometimes this gas would ignite. Imagine sitting there minding your own business, when suddenly flames shoot up from below. Romans were so terrified of this, they painted images of Fortuna, the goddess of luck, on toilet walls. Some carried good luck charms specifically for toilet visits. The historian Ammianus Marcellinus recorded several deaths from toilet explosions. One senator was reportedly launched off his seat by a methane blast and died from his injuries. Not all Romans suffered equally. The wealthy had private toilets in their homes, basically a wooden seat over a pot that slaves would empty. Emperor Claudius was so paranoid about toilet assassinations, a real thing, that he had guards check his private latrine before each use. The poor, they used chamber pots and threw the contents out their windows with a shout of "Gardez-vous," meaning watch out for the water. Walking under windows in Rome was a hazardous activity. Now let's talk about Rome's most valuable liquid. And no, it wasn't wine. Romans were absolutely obsessed with urine. They had an entire economy built around human pee. I'm not exaggerating. There were urine dealers, urine quality inspectors, and even urine sommeliers who could tell you which region produced the best pee for specific purposes. On street corners throughout Rome, you'd find large terracotta pots called dolia curta. These had one purpose: collecting urine from passers-by. Signs encouraged people to contribute, sometimes with crude humor. Hic non est, sed meatur. This isn't it, but pee here anyway. Professional urine collectors called fullones would make rounds collecting these pots. They'd take the urine to processing facilities where it was aged like fine wine. Fresh urine was worthless. It needed to ferment until it turned into ammonia. Not all urine was created equal. Portuguese urine commanded premium prices because the Iberian diet, high in certain herbs, produced urine with superior ammonia content. Roman poet Catullus mocked a Spaniard named Ignatius for his white teeth, writing, "Ignatius, because he has snow-white teeth, smiles constantly. In the country of Spain, what each man pisses, he's used to brushing his teeth and red gums with every morning, so the fact that your teeth are so polished just shows you're more full of piss." Romans used urine for mouthwash and toothpaste. They'd swish it around their mouths every morning. The ammonia did kill bacteria and whiten teeth, but at what cost? Togas were soaked in aged urine to remove stains. Slaves would literally stomp on clothes in tubs of pee, like making wine, but infinitely worse. Physicians prescribed urine for everything from headaches to cancer. They'd examine its color, smell, and yes, taste, to diagnose illnesses. Animal hides were soaked in urine to soften them. That expensive leather couch Romans lounged on? Pea-soaked. Mixed with certain plants, urine created blonde dyes. Roman women desperate to look Germanic would regularly wash their hair in pee. Being a fullinus, urine processor, was one of the worst jobs in Rome. They spent their days knee-deep in fermenting urine, their skin permanently stained yellow, their sense of smell destroyed. Many developed severe respiratory problems from ammonia exposure, yet they were essential. When Emperor Vespasian placed a tax on urine collection, there were riots. His son Titus complained about taxing something so disgusting. Vespasian held up a gold coin and said, "Does this smell?" Thus the phrase pecunia non olet, money doesn't stink. But wait, you might say, Romans had elaborate bathhouses. Surely those were clean. Oh, sweet summer child. Roman baths were essentially human soup kitchens where diseases were the main course. Let's start with basic math. The baths of Caracalla could hold 1,600 bathers. The baths of Diocletian, 3,000. Now, how often do you think they changed the water? Try once a week, if they felt like it. Dr. Piers Mitchell from Cambridge University studied Roman bath water remains. He found that by the end of each day, the water contained dead skin cells equivalent to 50 pounds, fecal matter from inevitable accidents, blood from open wounds, pus from infections, and various bodily oils and secretions. One Roman writer, Marcus Martial, complained, "The bathwater is so thick you can't see the bottom of the pool." Romans didn't use soap. Instead, they'd coat themselves in olive oil, exercise to work up a sweat, then scrape everything off with a curved metal tool called a strigil. Where did the scrapings go? Right onto the floor or back into the water. Slaves would occasionally sweep up the grey, greasy mixture of oil, sweat, dirt, and dead skin. But occasionally is the key word. Here's where it gets truly insane. The scrapings from gladiators, their sweat, dirt, and dead skin, were collected and sold as a luxury cosmetic. Rich Roman women believed gladiator essence would make them irresistible. They'd mix it with their face creams, paying fortunes for vials of what was essentially athlete's toe in a bottle. Some women even drank it as a fertility treatment. One merchant's advertisement survived in Pompeii. Genuine gladiator scrapings from the Ludus Magnus, guaranteed to contain the essence of victory. Roman baths were perfect disease incubators. The warm water, the crowds, the complete lack of chlorination. It was a pathogen's paradise. Common bath-acquired illnesses included trachoma, eye infections leading to blindness, polio, tuberculosis, various skin fungi, intestinal parasites, and STDs. Yes, people had sex in the baths. One study of Roman skeletons showed that people who lived near bathhouses had significantly higher rates of bone infections and parasites than those who didn't. Despite the health risks, avoiding the baths was social suicide. Emperors who didn't bathe publicly were considered tyrants. When Hadrian tried to introduce separate bathing hours for men and women for moral reasons, he was nearly overthrown. The philosopher Seneca, who lived above a bathhouse, wrote, "The noise is unbearable, the grunting of men exercising, the slap of massages, the splash of divers, the shouts of sausage sellers, and worst of all, the armpit hair pluckers advertising their services with shrill cries." When Romans inevitably got sick from their hygiene habits, the cures were often deadlier than the diseases. Roman medicine was a mix of Greek knowledge, superstition, and pure sadism. Many doctors were Greek slaves with questionable training. The Romans had a saying, "More people die from doctors than diseases." For headaches, doctors would apply live electric rays to your skull. The shock was supposed to reset your brain. Drilling holes in skulls to release evil spirits was common. Surprisingly, some patients survived, as evidenced by healed bone around the holes. Gladiator blood was prescribed for epilepsy. Fresh, warm, straight from the arena. Patients would rush to fallen gladiators and drink directly from their wounds. Crocodile dung mixed with chalk was applied as a face mask for clear skin. The dung was imported from Egypt at enormous cost. Ground mouse brains mixed with honey served as toothpaste. Because apparently urine wasn't disgusting enough, Romans loved lead like we love smartphones. It was everywhere and slowly killing them. They used lead for water pipes. The word plumbing comes from the Latin for lead, plumbum. Cooking pots, wine sweetener, lead acetate called sugar of lead, face makeup, hair dyes, and medicine. The result? Widespread lead poisoning causing infertility, brain damage, violent mood swings, hallucinations, and death. Some historians believe lead poisoning contributed to the madness of emperors like Caligula and Nero. Their erratic behavior might have been chronic lead exposure. Roman surgery was performed without anesthesia, beyond some wine or opium if you were lucky. Surgeons' tools have been found that look more like torture devices. Bone saws, skull drills, speculums that could dislocate jaws, cauterizing irons, and hooks for removing arrowheads or eyeballs. The survival rate for major surgery was about 20%. Most patients died from shock, blood loss, or infection. You'd think eating would be the one safe activity, right? Wrong.
From bad to worse,
You
my
can
boy.
reverse the trailer, wire a fuse box. Got your
From
ball
bad to
without
worse.
spilling your beer.
Salaki for the ad. Hey, man. No. There we
Roman
go.
dining was a biohazard buffet. First, let's clear something up. Vomitoriums weren't rooms for vomiting. They were passages in amphitheaters. But Romans did vomit at dinner parties. A lot. Wealthy Romans would feast for hours, eating until they were sick, then taking emetics to vomit so they could eat more. Seneca wrote, "They vomit to eat and eat to vomit." Special slaves called vomit collectors stood by with bowls. Missing the bowl was considered bad manners. Every Roman meal featured garum, a sauce made from fermented fish guts. The production process was so foul, it was illegal to make it within city limits. Here's the recipe. Take fish intestines, blood, and heads. Layer with salt in clay pots. Leave in the sun for several months. Strain the putrid liquid. Serve on everything. The smell was indescribable. Pliny the Elder called it that exceedingly putrid liquid. Yet Romans were addicted to it, like we are to ketchup. Roman feasts featured dormice stuffed with pork and pine nuts, flamingo tongues, peacock brains, camel heels, jellyfish omelets, sow's wombs, and stuffed udders. But the ultimate delicacy, silphium, a plant so popular as a contraceptive and seasoning that Romans ate it to extinction. The last stalk was given to Emperor Nero, who ate it in one sitting. Emperor Claudius died at a dinner party, possibly poisoned by mushrooms. Emperor Caracalla would serve enemies dishes that looked normal, but contained slow-acting poisons, then bet on who would die first. The famous Dinner of Trimalchio, described by Petronius, featured a whole roasted boar that, when carved, released live birds that flew around the room, defecating on guests. This was considered the height of sophistication. Despite their engineering marvels, Romans were walking parasite hotels. Dr. Piers Mitchell's groundbreaking study of Roman-era human remains revealed that 90% had intestinal parasites. The average Roman had 3 to 4 different species of worms. Parasite loads were higher during the Roman Empire than in the Bronze Age. Their advanced hygiene actually made things worse. Ascaris, roundworm, could grow up to 14 inches long and lived in your intestines. Females laid 200,000 eggs daily. Sometimes worms would crawl out of people's noses or mouths during sleep. Trichuris whipworm caused bloody diarrhea, anemia, and rectal prolapse. Romans thought it was caused by bad air. Fish tapeworm from undercooked fish and garum could grow 30 feet long inside you. Romans would starve themselves, then tempt the worm out with milk placed near their mouths. Entamoeba histolytica caused amoebic dysentery and killed more Roman soldiers than combat. Why so many parasites? Romans used human feces to fertilize crops. Parasite eggs survived and infected food. The communal toilet sponges spread parasites person to person. Warm, stagnant bathwater was perfect for parasite transmission. Fish parasites survived the garum fermentation process, and the concept of hand washing didn't exist. Romans might rinse hands in perfumed water at dinner, but that was for smell, not hygiene. When we talk about the fall of Rome, we mention barbarian invasions, political instability, economic collapse. But what about the biological warfare they waged on themselves daily? Recent archaeological evidence suggests disease played a massive role in Rome's decline. The Antonine Plague, possibly smallpox, killed 10% of the population. The plague of Cyprian, possibly Ebola, killed 5,000 people daily in Rome. Malaria was endemic, weakening the population. Their hygiene...
And I was going to get the precept, but the water Yahweh Shemi Yahweh Shai for the spirit of Yahweh Shemi Yahweh Shai. Hey, Shalom, Yahweh Shemi Yahweh Shai, Bashem Kakadash Brakatah. Subscribe to the brothers page and Barakatham to all you brothers and sisters, man, of Yahweh Shemi Yahweh Shai, household of faith, as our beloved Elder Apostle Kabar always says. This is GMS Taza Dr. Bun Yahweh 144, Job 30 and 8. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. And that's the exact scripture and the exact spot I was going to start. But you really could start at verse 1. because that's going all into Esau's characteristics, man. And as you see how the Romans were living in the time where they were in rulership, you got to remember this was right after 70 AD when they ransacked the temple. So you have to see these things were happening, all right, in our captivities, man. But you're dealing with the ruler of the earth right now. This is how he's living. Okay, the scripture says the earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. Well, who's inhabiting the earth right now? Job 9:24, the earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Esau, Edom, the banking elites, you so-called white people who love America so much and hate everything indigenous. Okay, you are the biblical Edomites. You are the wicked of the Bible. And at the end of the day, you are the basis of men. Okay, that's right. That's right. Verse 9, and now I am their song, yea, I am their byword, man. Job wouldn't even, okay, when you read up in the chapter, Job wouldn't even let these Edomites come by his dogs, man. Okay. The scripture says in verse 1 that they that are in derision, right? The children that are younger than me has had me in derision. That's talking about Esau. Okay. And this is how this man was living in rulership, man. God damn, he's having shit parties. All right. He's brushing his teeth with urine. They're collecting urine from overseas and brushing their teeth with it. Their women were washing their hair with urine. They took the dead skin and the bathing, off the gladiators and drank it and used it as perfume. You know, think about living in this society in the ancient days, man. And if this was the leadership culture, then how much more the slave culture? How much poorer and more desolate was it? These people were bathing in feces. They said that the water was so thick they may clean it once a week, but it had blood and dead skin. You know how they used their vomit. They dyed their clothes in urine. Urine was a delicacy. Feces was a normalcy in the Roman times. All right.
Practices created perfect conditions for pandemic spread. The very bathhouses and toilets meant to showcase Roman civilization became disease superhighways. So the next time you romanticize...
And nobody knows how to bring a pandemic like Esau, man. Nobody knows how to develop sicknesses better than Esau, man. He's been doing these things from the beginning of time. This man is diabolical from birth. The scripture says, "Lest there be any fornicator." Okay, it's Esau, man. He's just vile, man.
Ancient Rome, remember, they shared butt sponges with hundreds of strangers. They brushed their teeth with aged human urine.
Butt sponges, man. Okay, with hundreds of strangers. So the toilet paper in Roman day was like a moss, like a moss sponge, and they would leave it hanging, and they would all share it, man. You have disease, and you have all kinds of worms. They said they would try to coach the worms out of their mouth. They would starve themselves, and they would starve the worm, and they'd get a glass of milk and put the glass of milk by their mouth. What the fuck are we talking about, man? They would put a cup of milk by their mouth to catch the worm and to pull the worm out of their body, man. Okay? You Edomites are done. Y'all are going from bad to worse because all that's been glorified in the ancient text is how much Esau was a hero, how much he was a conqueror, how much he was an innovator, how much he was this great warrior, okay, this innovative general. And when you break down the history and you really get the insights, okay, you start to realize how base this man really was by nature.
Bathed in water thick with human filth. They wore clothes washed in pee. They had worms crawling out of their bodies. They paid premium prices for gladiator sweat. The Roman Empire gave us law, engineering, and philosophy. But they also showed us what happens when civilization advances faster than hygiene knowledge. Tonight, when you use your private bathroom with clean toilet paper, soap that isn't made from ash and animal fat, and water that isn't full of parasites, take a moment to appreciate it. You're living better than Caesar himself. What's the most disturbing fact you learned? Comment below if your stomach can handle thinking about it again. And if you think this was bad, wait until you see my next video. Why Roman emperors kept dying on the toilet. Spoiler, it wasn't always natural causes. Remember to like, subscribe, and wash your hands with actual soap in private. You've earned it.
Watch how.
Yeah, man. Hey, man. Hey, Esau, you're going from bad to worse, my boy. It is looking horrible on you. And the more we see you in reality with this knowledge, is the more we understand why you're the basis of man. We look past the shiny shoes and the slick back hair and those nice tuxedos, those Zippo suits you like to wear. You walk around with your little briefcase, or you like to ride around in your trucks with your little Oakleys on. You see, your truck fit. You know, all this weirdo shit that you like to do, it's starting to be clear on who you are. And the Lord is revealing you in the times, and the times we're in is the times of prophecy, which is the spirit of Yahweh Shai. The water for tuning in. I pray this lesson was edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. And with that, I'm giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakah Kodash. Hey, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, only who will well and teach well. Peace and blessings and salutations unto the elect. Only unto you I say shalom. This is your fellow servant Damawathi bin Lloyd from the GMS Orlando camp praying. These lessons are edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. The Water Brothers for tuning in, the Water for moderating. Okay, beautiful brother Bayan Yasharala, hopeful elect, Princess Ephraim. Okay, sincerely Atara. HID Detroit, GMS all in 144, Zion, Shalom Sis, Micah Allah, Hopeful 144, GMS Taza Dr. Bunny Howard. Alright. All you brothers and sisters, the water for tuning in. Hey, may the blessing of election be upon your households. Wake up, Jacob. Shalom.